Good day, everybody. Welcome to the Bible in the year 2021, day 19. Day 19. And we're going on to Genesis 22 to 24. And I promise you that this is not going to be as long as some of the other days have been. It's just so it's that way with the Bible as we read it through, that there is just a lot of content on one day, not so much on another. So, but there's always something that the Spirit has to say to us. So, we're going to get to this so I can keep my word that it's not going to be long today. Genesis chapter 22. And we're not going to go through all of this. It's the test. A lot of you are familiar with this. As you read this, you could be absolutely aghast and going, what? What kind of God is this? Um, the whole nature of tests. I want you to just look at this. It is easy to understand why God would want to test Abraham. I think we can all be on that same page. Humanity has failed him so many times. Um, the whole thing with Adam, like can humanity be trusted? Can remember, he's starting this nation as a way to glorify himself, to reveal himself to the whole world. Can he trust Abraham? Can he trust Abraham to teach what needs to be taught that passes down to the children? Because he's giving Abraham all kinds of revelations, all kinds of understanding. He's bringing him into his inner place, not the intimacy that we enjoy, but the intimacy that was available at that time. And like, can this be trusted? That's, I mean, if that's what he was doing, I think most of us could understand if that's what he was doing. Um, the thing is that God already knows Abraham's heart. He already knows all this. He knows all of this. He's got this. He knows this. He knows Abraham's heart. So this isn't that kind of test. In fact, the testing that we go through, we refer to it as testing, but it's actually a revealing. It's a revealing to us where we are or where we should be in our relationship with the Lord. That's what it shows. Because sometimes we can have this doubt of whether we can actually walk in that way, whether we can do this, whether we can do that. And when we go through the testings, we discover that we're more than what we thought we were. That God has made us more than what we thought we were. That we have access to more than what we thought we had. And so these tests are more about us knowing our own heart, knowing our own condition, to reveal to us where we are in the relationship, to reveal to us where we are in our faith with God, where we are in our trust with God. So if you get into a situation and you're all panicky, if you go through a trial and you're all panicky, you should know right there. If you're full of fear, doubt, you're running around like a chicken with a head cut off, you know there's some growth that needs to happen. And that's what's being revealed to you. Is the Now you didn't have to be that way. It was available to you to step into a greater relationship, to step into a higher place, to step into a place of maturity. Just because you failed in that, just because you failed to walk in who you are, man, it's better to know that now than after you've died and come to find out that your faith is lacking. It's better to be tested here. That's what Scripture tells us. Is to be better to be tested here and find that we're wanting, so that we can make the adjustments, so that we can learn, so that we can grow. And testing is not supposed to be a negative experience. So that's what you should have here. Now, in verse 3, I want you to just appreciate Abraham. Appreciate what we've learned about him. God calls him out of the Chaldeans. Bang, he's gone. No questions asked. He just goes. And this is without him knowing the Creator in the way that he knows him now. And the whole thing about the circumcision, no question, bang, he just that very day he starts in on the circumcision, just acts on it, and so we here he says, go and sacrifice the promise, go and sacrifice the seed that represents the promise. Abraham got up early in the morning, harnessed his donkey, and took two of his young men with him, together with his son Isaac. He split the wood for the entirely burned offering, set out, went to the place God had described to him. So he did everything he needed to do to comply to obedience. Now, we can have the great discussion whether Abraham knew that God would not, that God would relent, that God would not, that this was just a test, or whether he knew that because he had discovered so much about Yahweh. This is the man who argued about the sense of justice that he understood from God, and reminding God that he is a God of justice. And so looking at this, is this a just thing? Like, but yet he walked in every step of obedience, in every step of obedience, everything he had to do. And look at this, you really need to come to appreciate this in verse 5 and then in verse 8. Abraham said to his servant, "Stay here with the donkey. The boy and I will walk up there, worship, and then come back to you." The boy and I then come back to you. The boy and I will come back to you. The boy and I will return to you. That's a statement of faith right there. That's a statement of trust right there. I'm not about to lose Isaac. And then when Isaac was questioning his dad, because you got to understand, Isaac's not 9 years old. He's a young man here, which should help you appreciate the story even more. He says, like, Dad, like, I see the wood, but I don't see the sacrifice. And so Abraham said, the lamb for the entirely burned offering. Sorry, that was a question. The lamb for the entirely burned offering? God will see to it, my son. God will see to it, my son. There's a statement of faith right there. God's going to provide the sacrifice that's needed here. The two of them walked on together. That's so beautiful. Abraham is walking in knowing that he's not about to lose his son. He trusts God that much. God is basically saying, are you willing? Do you love me enough to obey me, even to the point of losing the seed of the promise? Am I more important to you than the promise? Am I more important to you than the promise? Let that sink in, because there are so many people who have basically have lost their salvation, walked away from God because they became disappointed, because they felt that they weren't getting, or they're getting a raw deal. Basically, that whatever was happening wasn't fair. And the whole question then that we need to ask ourselves is, my relationship with Jesus more than enough? Is it more than enough? Is it more than anything else? Is it more than my spouse, who I love so much? But is my relationship with him more important than my spouse? Didn't Jesus ask that question? Do you love me more than them? And he said that anybody who loves his mom and dad, or her mom and dad, or children or friends or whatever else, more than they love him, are not worthy of him. And it's not a real, it's not a demand. It's not a demand of, you have to love me more than them. It's just that the relationship should be so intense, so passionate, so vibrant, that your connection with the life source is more important than the companions that have been given to you on this journey. The relationship with the life source, because those companions are nothing compared to that life source. What he has done for us is more than what anybody else has ever done for us. So that's what this is really all about. In verse 9, I just want you to also consider the relationship that Isaac and Abraham had. He's a young man, I know, somewhere between 16 to 19, somewhere around there. His dad's old. Abraham's old. You got to wonder how much strength is left in this old man. Although we know some old men that are pretty strong, stronger than I'll ever be. And these guys are awesome. And I'm sure that with Abraham wasn't an aloof person. He was a hands-on person from what we can see. So I'm sure that he was still out shearing the sheep and doing all that sort of stuff. So this is no weakling, but at the same time, we're talking about a young, strapping man. And what happens? They arrived at the place God had described to him. Abraham built an altar there and arranged the wood on it. he tied up his son Isaac. How could he do that? At the same time, why was he compelled to tie? If Isaac was cooperating with his dad, wouldn't have he had just laid down on the fire? Or did he cooperate enough for his dad to tie him up, but he needed to be tied up in case he changed his mind when the fire got lit? Laid him on the altar on top of the wood. He allowed his dad to do this. He trusted his dad. Didn't fully understand what was going on, but his relationship, I mean, you and I probably cannot imagine such a thing. We probably cannot imagine a relationship like that. But he had such a trusting relationship of his dad. His dad proved himself again and again and again, had never failed his son. And he trusted him. That's just amazing stuff. It's an amazing story. Of course, it doesn't go ahead because actually human sacrifices will later discover is an abomination to our God. He absolutely detests them. They're wretched to him, absolutely wretched. Remember how precious we already know that about him. Human life is absolutely precious, so precious that at this stage of understanding of revelation, because understand with limited, there were certain laws that were put in place later because of a certain limit of understanding of where they could go spiritually in their understanding. So at this point, it's a tooth for a tooth, and it's a life for a life, because life was that important. And so here, having come away from this now, with great relief, still with his faith intact, we can appreciate here the messenger says, don't stretch out your hand against the young man, and don't do anything to him. I now know that you revere God and didn't hold back your son, your only son, from me. So what does this say? And this is neat because I wrote this down in my notes at this stage. This is what, when I was reading this, I wrote down, I see you, Abraham. That's what I wrote down in my notes. I see you, Abraham, which is really interesting to see what comes next. But it's really, God says, I see you. And in our church, because of a certain lady who we won't embarrass by calling her out, we've got into the habit of when somebody says, it's good to see you, to respond, it's good to be seen. And that's the feeling here, right here. It's good to be seen. It's good and it's encouraging to know that God sees you and he responds to you. He knows you. He sees your act of faith. He sees the things you're doing. He looks at you and he says, I see you. I see you. Jesus going to the cross was a I see you moment. It's so important. And then we read this. So after the fact, what does he call the mountain? He named the place, the Lord sees. The Lord sees. This is the reason people today say, on this mountain, the Lord sees. Isn't that amazing? God sees. The Lord sees. Wow. Okay, so again, we have this affirmation thing that takes place. It's the affirmation. I give my word as the Lord I give my word as the Lord that because you did this and didn't hold back your son, your only son. In other words, you showed me, I see you, Abraham. You showed me that you love me even more than your son, even more than the promise, even more than the promise of the nation, even more than the promise of the land. You love me. You love me. I see you, Abraham. You did this and didn't hold back your son, your only son. I will bless you richly, and I will give you countless descendants, as many as the stars in the sky and as the grains of sand on the seashore. They will conquer their enemy cities. All the nations of the earth will be blessed because of your descendants, because you obey me. Now understand why I say this was a thing where God knows right here. God knows, okay, that he can trust Abraham with teaching his children these values, of teaching his children everything that he knows about God the Creator, teaching them the value of obedience and of trust, to teach them this so that it's handed down, so they have these seeds that God will be able to use to grow this nation. It's a beautiful moment, absolutely beautiful. Um, and then we have, Genesis 23. And it is, I like the exchange. I like the exchange between Abraham and Ephron over a tomb for Sarah, because you can read it one way, but if you understand the buttering nature of the tribes of this time, um, you see it's not exactly what it appears to be, because it appears that Ephron is being generous, but in fact, this back and forth, he's actually telling Abraham that he won't sell the cave without selling the surrounding field. If Abraham wants the cave, he's got to buy the whole thing. It's like when you go into a store and I don't know, they're selling something that has different components, but they're selling it as one thing, and you only want one of those components, and the store says, no, you got to buy the whole thing. We don't sell it in parts. And so this is what he's saying to him. And then in verse 15, what's 400 shekels of silver between us? It's a lot of money, is what it is. That's not a fire sale, I'll tell you there. That is a lot of money, and it could be because they know that Abraham is a wealthy man, and the whole reason that they're willing to give up that land is because they know that Abraham is a man of substance. So I really like that out of that exchange. In Genesis now 24, over in Genesis 24:12, the whole thing that comes out of this for me is the prayer. The prayer is the most important thing. It's a little annoying how it gets repeated, but it's because it's so amazing. It gets repeated so much because the servant is just amazed by this. It's what happened between the trusted servant of Abraham and the Lord. See, he prayed. He prayed and asked favor for Abraham, for Abraham's desire, for the fact that Abraham wanted um, a, a wife, not a Canaanite wife for his son, but a wife from his own people. And so we have the servant here praying and asking favor for his master, for Abraham. Lord God of my master Abraham, make something good happen for me today, and be loyal to my master Abraham. And then he gives very specific. He wants directions, so he makes a very specific request here. He details it exactly what he wants to have. The first part, that's a given. Okay, we can almost dismiss it because that is the culture of the time. If somebody shows up around the well, a stranger, and they ask somebody, because the wells are designed in such a way that not just anybody can drink from you need to have a vessel, and so they would ask, if they could have a drink, and that's the culture of the time. They would give a drink to a stranger. But the next part, that's amazing. That's taken a bit further, where the offer to also water the animals, to give the animals water, and it shows such a kind heart, a sensitive heart, a caring heart, which was really good. And then what's really sealed it off was when the servant realized that this is Abraham's family. This is Abraham's family. And so when we look at this, again, we look at intercession. Okay. The servant isn't praying for himself. He's praying for Abraham. He's interceding for Abraham. He knows what Abraham's desire is, and he prays about that desire. So he intercedes for him. And then we have the intervention of God. God doesn't stay aloof. We are seeing this. The interaction that there is between God, the creator, and his creation, God and humanity. It's especially in wanting to move his whole plan forward. It's important for Isaac to have the right wife to move this whole plan forward. And so we have him again intervening in this situation. So it's, I mean, we continue to see things reinforced, and the revelations that we've been given up to this point, and things being reinforced to this day. Today, what is it that we love about our God? He intervenes. How do we know he intervenes? He came on the cross. He's given us the Holy Spirit. He answers our prayers. He tells us that whatever we need, just ask for it. He has us as intercessors. He's called us to intercede for people, and he intervenes through us over all kinds of things, situations and illnesses and death and all that sort of stuff. And he also takes direct intervention in our own lives when we cry out to him. So it's amazing stuff. Amazing stuff. Be encouraged, people. He loves you. He's involved with you. He's with you, and we're only still in Genesis. Wait till you see the other stuff that's coming. You guys have a blessed and wonderful day. Love you all, and thank you for being on this journey with us.